I'm Ernesto, 32, a software engineer in Austin who built a life most would envy. Raised in an upper-middle-class family, I always felt like an afterthought compared to my younger sister Bella. Despite my achievements, my parents consistently overlooked me. The pattern became crystal clear when they ignored my birthday 5 years straight, then gifted my barely graduating sister a luxury SUV worth more than my first year's salary. What they didn't expect was my response: complete silence that would eventually make them panic. Before I dive into how everything fell apart, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Growing up in our suburban Connecticut home, my childhood seemed normal at first. My father, Robert, worked as an investment banker, putting in long hours but making an effort to attend weekend activities when possible. My mother, Diana, ran her interior design business from home, ensuring our house was always immaculate for potential clients. To outsiders, we appeared to be the perfect American family. When I was 4 years old, my sister Bella was born. My parents called her their miracle baby because my mother had experienced several complications during pregnancy. I remember the day they brought her home wrapped in a pink blanket with a tiny bow headband. At that age, I was excited to have a baby sister and didn't yet understand how her arrival would reshape my place in the family. The first signs appeared subtly during elementary school. When I brought home straight A's on my second-grade report card, my mother glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey," before returning to helping Bella with her coloring. The same week, Bella drew a stick figure family that barely resembled humans, and my parents framed it, calling everyone they knew about their daughter's artistic talent. My father would cancel our planned baseball practices because Bella had dance lessons that suddenly took priority. My mother would shush me during dinner when I tried to talk about winning the spelling bee because Bella was telling a rambling story about her day at kindergarten. Small moments accumulated into a pattern I couldn't name yet. By age 10, I had developed a strategy: excel at everything. If being average wasn't enough to gain their attention, perhaps being exceptional would. I threw myself into academics, particularly math and science, where my natural abilities shined. I joined every academic club, entered science competitions, and spent hours perfecting projects. My third-grade science fair project on plant growth won district recognition. My parents attended the ceremony but left early because Bella had a minor cold. In 5th grade, I scored perfect marks on the statewide assessment test. The principal called my parents personally to congratulate them. They mentioned it briefly at dinner, then spent 20 minutes discussing Bella's participation in the school play where she had 2 lines as a tree. The one person who recognized my potential was my maternal grandfather, Thomas. A retired electrical engineer, he took genuine interest in my academic pursuits. When I turned 12, he gave me my first programming book and an older computer he'd refurbished specifically for me. "Your mind works differently, Ernesto," he told me one afternoon while teaching me basic coding principles. "You see patterns and solutions where others see problems. Don't let anyone dim that light in you." Under his guidance, I created my first simple program within weeks. Grandfather Thomas became my true mentor, the one adult who seemed genuinely invested in my development. During summer breaks, I would spend weeks at his lakeside cabin learning about engineering, computers, and problem solving. Those were the times I felt truly seen and valued. High school intensified both my achievements and the disparate treatment. I took every advanced placement course available, headed the robotics team to state championships, and maintained a perfect GPA throughout all 4 years. By senior year, I was valedictorian with college offers from multiple prestigious universities, including MIT, which offered a substantial merit scholarship. Meanwhile, Bella struggled with basic courses and needed tutors for standard classes. Yet every small improvement in her grades was celebrated extravagantly. When she finally got a B- in English, after previously failing, my parents took the entire family out to an expensive restaurant. My acceptance letter to MIT warranted a quick congratulations and a discussion about how they would handle dropping Bella off at her dance camp the weekend of my orientation. The pattern became impossible to ignore when my parents missed my award ceremony for academic excellence to attend Bella's dance recital, where she performed in the back row of a group number. The principal asked where my family was as he handed me the prestigious scholarship certificate. I mumbled something about them being stuck in traffic, though the truth was they hadn't even attempted to make it. That night my friend Marcus came over to celebrate with pizza. He had attended the ceremony alone to support me, taking photos and cheering loudly when my name was called. As we sat on the back porch, he finally said what I'd been thinking for years. "Your parents don't treat you right, man. I've been watching this for years and it's messed up." I tried to defend them with practiced excuses. They were busy. Bella needed more attention. I was self-sufficient. Marcus shook his head. "My mom and dad work 60 hours a week and still never miss anything important for me or my 3 sisters. Being busy isn't the issue. They're playing favorites and it sucks." His family had always welcomed me warmly. His mother frequently invited me for dinner, asking thoughtful questions about my interests and achievements. His father helped me apply for scholarships and offered practical life advice. In their modest home, I experienced what family support should feel like, unconditional and consistent. By graduation, I had accepted that my place in my biological family would always be peripheral. I delivered my valedictorian speech to thunderous applause from teachers and peers who recognized my hard work. My parents arrived 15 minutes late, missing half my speech, because Bella had changed her outfit 3 times before agreeing to come. As I prepared to leave for MIT, I hoped that physical distance might improve our relationship. Perhaps they would appreciate me more when I wasn't constantly present, serving as a reminder of their uneven affections. Arriving at MIT was like taking my first full breath after years of shallow breathing. My dormitory became home to 4 other engineering students who quickly became close friends. We shared similar interests, challenged each other intellectually, and formed a tight support system. For the first time, I lived among people who valued the very qualities my parents had overlooked. My roommate Jackson particularly became a brother in all but blood. He came from a large, boisterous family in Michigan, who immediately adopted me into their fold during parents' weekend when my own family didn't make the trip. Car trouble my mother had explained over the phone, though Bella's Instagram showed them at her high school football game where she was cheering. While my parents' contact dwindled to occasional texts and monthly brief calls, I thrived in my new environment. My professors recognized my aptitude for algorithmic thinking and software architecture. By sophomore year, I was selected for a specialized research program usually reserved for graduate students. Summer break presented a choice: return home or accept an internship at a major tech company in California. The decision became simple when my parents mentioned they were taking Bella on a European vacation to broaden her horizons before college applications. They hadn't considered including me in these plans, so I accepted the internship without hesitation. Those 12 weeks in Silicon Valley opened doors I hadn't imagined possible. My supervisor, Julian, became another important mentor, introducing me to industry leaders and involving me in projects beyond the typical intern experience. By summer's end, I had helped develop a feature that would eventually be implemented in the company's flagship product. "You have an unusual mind," Ernesto Julian told me during my performance review. "You solve problems differently than engineers with decades more experience. Don't waste that gift somewhere that doesn't value it." When I returned for junior year, I doubled down on coursework and research. My parents rarely called to check on my progress, but my grandfather remained my steadfast supporter, sending encouraging letters and calling weekly to discuss my projects and plans. Senior year brought job offers from top technology companies months before graduation. I accepted a position with a prestigious firm in Austin, drawn to their innovative approach and the vibrant tech community. When I called my parents with the news, my father's response was telling. "That's nice, son. Did you hear Bella got accepted to State University? We're so proud of her. Your mother's been helping her plan her dorm room all week." Graduation day arrived with suitable fanfare. As I waited with my fellow graduates, I scanned the crowd for my family. They had promised to attend, but as the ceremony began, their seats remained empty. Halfway through the proceedings, I spotted them slipping into the back row. They had missed the awarding of special honors, where I had received 3 distinctions, including the department's highest achievement award. Afterward, as we took photos, my mother explained they had been late because Bella couldn't find the right shoes to match her dress. My father checked his watch repeatedly during lunch, mentioning they needed to get back on the road soon to help Bella prepare for her senior prom the following weekend. Grandfather Thomas, who had arrived a day early and taken me to dinner to celebrate privately, watched this interaction with sad eyes. As my parents and sister left, he put his hand on my shoulder. "Their limitations are not your fault, Ernesto. Some people can't see beyond certain patterns they've established. Build your life for yourself, not for their approval." I took his advice to heart as I moved to Austin and began my career. The company recognized my talents quickly, assigning me to high-priority projects within months of my arrival. By 26, I had been promoted twice and led a small team, developing innovative solutions for cloud infrastructure. My first apartment was a modest one-bedroom that I purchased without parental assistance at 24, using savings from my internships and signing bonus. When I sent them photos, my mother replied with a text saying, "Looks nice," followed immediately by pictures of Bella's dorm room they had decorated at considerable expense. Despite the continuing pattern, I maintained contact and attempted to build an adult relationship with my family. At Christmas, I flew home with carefully selected gifts. A rare first edition of a design book my mother had mentioned, once custom cufflinks for my father featuring the logo of his alma mater and concert tickets for Bella to see her favorite band. My efforts were met with the usual tepid appreciation. My own gifts were predictably generic: a department store sweater, standard gift cards, items that required minimal thought or effort. The disparity became especially apparent when Bella unwrapped a brand new laptop and designer handbag. Still, I persisted. Each Thanksgiving and Christmas, I made the trip home. During summer breaks, when Bella was home from college, I tried to connect with her, taking her to lunch and asking about her interests and plans. She remained largely self-absorbed, frequently checking her phone during our conversations and speaking mainly about parties' complaints about professors who expected too much and her rotating cast of boyfriends. As my career continued its upward trajectory, I created a groundbreaking algorithm for data processing that earned industry recognition and a substantial bonus. I called my parents to share the news only to have the conversation redirected to Bella's struggle to pass her basic statistics course. My mother asked if I could tutor her online, not acknowledging the significance of my achievement. By 27, I had accepted the reality of my family dynamic. I maintained contact out of familial duty, but increasingly built my life around friends and colleagues who celebrated my successes and offered genuine support during challenges. My team at work became a second family, with weekly dinners and weekend hiking trips filling my social calendar. Throughout these years, I continued sending thoughtful gifts for birthdays and holidays, calling regularly, and making efforts to maintain the relationship. My own birthday, however, typically warranted a brief phone call and perhaps a mailed card with a gift card inside. I accepted this minimal acknowledgement as the standard until the year everything changed. My 28th birthday fell on a Tuesday, a workday like any other. I expected the usual, a quick call from my parents, perhaps a card that would arrive a few days late. I went to work, received congratulations from colleagues who had noted the date on the office calendar, and anticipated checking my phone during lunch to see missed calls from family. By evening, no calls had come, no texts, no emails. I checked my physical mailbox, nothing there either. Thinking perhaps they were planning to call after dinner on the East Coast, I kept my phone nearby while preparing a simple birthday meal for myself. 9 o'clock came and went, then 10. By 11, I accepted that they had forgotten entirely. For the first time in 28 years, my birthday had passed without any acknowledgement from my family. The next morning, I called my mother not to complain, but simply to check in. "Oh, Ernesto," she exclaimed, her voice betraying sudden realization. "It was your birthday yesterday, wasn't it? I'm so sorry, sweetheart. We've been absolutely swamped helping Bella with her college applications. You know how stressful that process is." I did know. I had completed my applications largely on my own, with only my grandfather reviewing my essays, but I didn't mention this. "It's fine, Mom. I understand you're busy. You're such a good son," she said, sounding relieved. "We'll make it up to you at Christmas." That evening, my friend Marcus took me out for a belated birthday dinner. When I told him about my parents forgetting, his face darkened. "They don't deserve you, man. Never have." He raised his glass in a toast to making our own families with people who actually show up. I clinked glasses and smiled, but part of me still made excuses for my parents. It was just one birthday. Everyone gets busy. They would do better next year. But they didn't. My 29th birthday coincided with a significant professional milestone to a promotion to senior developer with a substantial salary increase and expanded responsibilities. My team decorated my desk with balloons and took me out for lunch. My supervisor presented me with a personalized leather portfolio engraved with my name and new title. Throughout the day, I periodically checked my phone expecting at least a text from family. Nothing came. By evening, I had stopped checking and focused on enjoying dinner with colleagues who were genuinely happy for both my birthday and professional achievement. At 11:30 that night, a text finally arrived from my mother. "Sorry we missed your birthday, been helping Bella move into her new apartment. Call when you can." No happy birthday. No congratulations on the promotion I had mentioned in our last conversation. Just another excuse centered around my sister. I maintained my usual pattern of generosity, despite the hurt sending thoughtful Christmas gifts 2 months later, a weekend spa package for my mother, premium golf accessories for my father, and designer sunglasses for Bella. Their gifts to me remained impersonal, another sweater, another gift card. The repeated pattern of being overlooked began affecting my mental health. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Allen, who helped me process the complex emotions surrounding my family dynamics. "What you're describing is a common pattern in families with favoritism," he explained during one session. "Your response, working harder, achieving more, giving generously, is a natural attempt to earn the attention and approval that should be freely given." "So I should just stop trying?" I asked. "Not necessarily. But you might consider adjusting your expectations and establishing healthier boundaries. Your self-worth shouldn't depend on their validation." I took his advice to heart, continuing therapy sessions as my 30th birthday approached. This milestone birthday seemed significant enough that surely my family would remember. I mentioned it during phone calls in the weeks leading up to the date, casually noting that I had planned a weekend celebration with friends. My parents made vague comments about possibly calling on the day. I didn't push for more, hoping they would make an effort for this significant birthday without prompting. The weekend arrived and I enjoyed the festivities I had planned with friends, a Saturday hiking trip followed by dinner at my favorite restaurant. Sunday morning, my actual birthday, I waited for the call that never came. By evening, I called them, something I rarely did on my birthday. My father answered, sounding distracted. "Oh, we were just about to call you," he said unconvincingly. "Happy birthday, son." In the background, I could hear my mother saying, "Tell him we can't talk long. Bella's having a crisis about her boyfriend." The call lasted less than 2 minutes. My 30th birthday acknowledged with a hurried conversation, and another reminder that Bella's minor drama took precedence over my milestone. That same day, a package arrived from my grandfather. An expensive watch with a heartfelt note inside, to mark not just 3 decades of life, but 3 decades of exceptional character and achievement. "You make me proud every day. Love, grandfather." During my next visit to his home, my grandfather's health noticeably declining, we had our most honest conversation about my family situation. "I've watched this happen your whole life," he said, his voice weaker, but his mind still sharp. "Your parents' behavior isn't fair or right. I've tried to speak to them about it over the years, but they have blind spots when it comes to you and Bella." "Why do you think they're like this?" I asked, finally voicing the question that had haunted me for years. "Some parents unconsciously favor the child they perceive as needing them more. Bella has always been dependent while you've been self-sufficient. Instead of seeing your independence as strength, they've taken it as permission to focus elsewhere." He squeezed my hand. "Don't let resentment consume you, but don't be a doormat either. Your life deserves to be built on reciprocal relationships." 3 months after that conversation, my grandfather passed away. His absence left an enormous void. He had been my most consistent supporter, the one family member who truly saw and valued me. My 31st birthday arrived during this period of grief. I had no expectations of celebration, but thought perhaps my parents might make a special effort given the difficult year. The day passed without a single message from any family member, not a text, not an email, not a call. When I spoke to my mother the following week, She didn't mention missing my birthday. Instead, she enthusiastically described how they had helped Bella with a down payment on a condo, despite the fact that my sister had graduated a year prior and still hadn't secured steady employment. "We want to make sure she has a good start in life," my mother explained. "It's so hard for young people these days." I thought about my own start, working through college, saving diligently, building my career through consistent effort. I had never received similar assistance, nor had I asked for it, but the contrast was striking. After that call, I took my therapist's advice about boundaries more seriously. I began spacing out calls with my family, no longer initiating contact as frequently. I stopped sending elaborate gifts, opting instead for simple cards. I declined the invitation to spend Easter with them, citing work commitments that didn't actually exist. Creating distance was self-preservation, not punishment. I was beginning to understand that continuously seeking approval from people unwilling or unable to provide it was damaging my well-being. As my 32nd birthday approached, I made a decision. I would not remind my family or hint at the upcoming date. This would be the final test of their awareness and consideration. If 5 years in a row passed without acknowledgement, I would need to reevaluate the energy I invested in these relationships. The timing coincided with the biggest professional achievement of my career thus far, the launch of an innovative software product I had conceptualized and led development on. The product garnered immediate industry attention, with technology publications featuring interviews with me about the development process and potential applications. On my actual birthday, I received congratulatory messages from colleagues, friends, and even former professors who had seen the industry coverage. My inbox and phone filled with well wishes for both the product launch and my birthday. From my family there was complete silence. No call, no text, no email, no card in the mail. That evening, Marcus showed up at my apartment with a bottle of champagne and takeout from my favorite restaurant. He had taken the day off work to drive 3 hours to celebrate with me. "Couldn't let my best friend celebrate alone," he said, as he unpacked the food. "Especially not with all you've accomplished this year." As we ate, I found myself recounting the pattern of forgotten birthdays. 5 consecutive years now. "What do they actually bring to your life?" At this point, Marcus asked bluntly. "Relationships should be reciprocal. What are you getting from maintaining these connections?" I had no good answer. The truth was painful but undeniable. My relationship with my parents and sister had become entirely one-sided. I gave attention, consideration, and care. They gave occasional obligation-driven responses when directly prompted. "Maybe it's time to stop trying so hard," I said finally. Not as punishment, but because it's exhausting to keep investing in relationships that offer nothing in return. Marcus nodded. "That's not giving up. That's having enough self-respect to walk away from people who don't value you, even if they're family." That night marked a turning point in my thinking. I would no longer chase approval or connection from people who had consistently shown they weren't interested in providing either. 2 weeks later, while casually checking social media, I saw a post from my mother that stopped me cold. There in my feed were multiple photos of a brand new BMW X7 luxury SUV with an enormous red bow on top. My sister stood beside it, beaming with our parents flanking her proudly. The caption read, "Only the best for our baby girl. Happy graduation to our precious Bella. We are so proud of all your hard work and accomplishments. Proud parents, college graduate, new car." I stared at the screen momentarily, unable to process what I was seeing. The vehicle easily cost $70,000 or more. My sister had finally graduated with a C average from State University after 6 years of changing majors and failed courses. Through mutual acquaintances, I had learned my parents had paid for her entire education, tuition, housing, meal plans, everything. Meanwhile, I had worked part-time jobs throughout MIT, secured scholarships, and graduated with minimal loans that I paid off within 2 years of working. I had never expected or wanted my parents to buy me a luxury vehicle. Material gifts weren't the issue. What cut deeply was the blatant disparity in emotional investment and recognition. My significant accomplishments warranted nothing, while my sister's mediocre achievement merited extravagant celebration and a vehicle that cost more than my first year's salary. After sitting with these feelings for a day, I decided to have one final conversation with my parents. Not to argue or demand explanation, but to calmly address the pattern I had observed throughout my life. Perhaps they were genuinely unaware of their behavior. I called on a Sunday afternoon when I knew they would both be home. "Ernesto." "What a surprise," my mother answered. "We were just talking about you yesterday." "Were you?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "I wanted to discuss something with you and Dad. Do you have a few minutes?" My father joined the call, and I carefully explained that I had noticed a consistent pattern of my accomplishments being minimized while Bella's were celebrated extravagantly. I mentioned the 5 consecutive forgotten birthdays as an example. "You're a successful man now," my father responded dismissively. "You don't need birthday parties and presents at your age." "It's not about gifts," I clarified. "It's about acknowledgement and equal consideration." "Well, Bella needs more support than you do," my mother added. "You've always been so independent and capable. So I'm penalized for being responsible, for not causing problems." "Nobody's penalizing you, my father," said his tone growing defensive. "You're making something out of nothing. We're proud of you too." At that moment I heard Bella's voice in the background, then the sounds of the phone being passed. "Ernesto, have you seen my new car?" she asked excitedly. "Mom and Dad got me the BMW X7 for graduation. Isn't it amazing? And we're planning a trip to Europe for the summer. Mom and Dad are paying for everything so I can have some time to find myself before starting my career." She continued chattering, unaware of the conversation she had interrupted, detailing the vehicle's features and the countries they planned to visit. My parents didn't redirect her or acknowledge the serious discussion we had been having. When she finally paused, I asked a simple question. "Bella, do you know when my birthday is?" She hesitated. "In the fall, sometime October maybe. My birthday is in April." She was off by 6 months. "We're also helping Bella with her rent for the first year," my mother chimed in, apparently seeing nothing wrong with this announcement given our current conversation. "Just until she finds herself and gets established in a career." In that moment, I realized with absolute clarity that nothing would ever change. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an oversight. This was a fundamental dynamic that had defined our family for decades and would continue indefinitely unless I removed myself from the equation. "I need to go," I said quietly. "I have plans this evening." "Don't be upset," my mother said quickly. "We love you too, you know that." I ended the call without responding. The declaration of love felt hollow after decades of actions that demonstrated the opposite. The 4th of July was approaching and my parents had extended their annual invitation for the family gathering. I declined with a simple text, "I can't make it this year." My mother responded immediately, "We'll miss you. Can you come for Labor Day instead?" No questions about why I couldn't attend. No apparent concern about the abrupt end to our previous conversation. Just the same surface-level interaction that had characterized our relationship for years. That evening I sat at my desk and began listing the evidence of our one-sided relationship, the gifts I had given versus those I had received, the life events I had shown up for versus those my family had attended, the emotional support I had offered versus what had been extended to me. The pattern was undeniable and had been consistent since childhood. I wasn't imagining it or being overly sensitive. The facts laid out chronologically told a clear story of disparity. During my next therapy session, I discussed my decision to step back completely from family contact. "This isn't an impulsive reaction," I explained to Dr. Allen. "This is the culmination of a lifelong pattern that I've tried repeatedly to address and change." "Sometimes distance is necessary for emotional health," he agreed. "Not as punishment for them, but as protection for yourself. Have you thought about how you want to implement this boundary?" "I don't want a dramatic confrontation," I said. "I think they would use that to paint me as irrational or jealous. I'd rather just quietly step back and redirect my energy toward people and relationships that are reciprocal and healthy." "That sounds like a thoughtful approach," Dr. Allen nodded. "Remember that boundaries can be adjusted over time based on your needs and their responses. This doesn't have to be a permanent all-or-nothing decision." But as I left his office, I knew that without fundamental changes in my family's behavior and awareness, changes they had shown no interest in making. This boundary would likely become permanent. I approached disengagement methodically, the way I would approach any complex problem. Rather than an emotional reaction, this would be a carefully implemented plan to protect my well-being. First, I changed my phone number without notifying my family. My close friends, colleagues, and important contacts received the new number with a request not to share it with anyone else. Next, I blocked my parents and sister on all social media platforms. I set email filters to automatically archive any messages from their addresses, removing the emotional toll of seeing their names in my inbox, but preserving the communications should I ever want to review them. I contacted my apartment building's doorman and management, instructing them to refuse any packages or unexpected visitors from my family members. I cited privacy concerns rather than explaining the full situation. These practical steps were simple to implement. The emotional aspects proved more challenging but equally necessary. The process reminded me of my professional approach to debugging software, systematically identifying and addressing vulnerabilities to create a more stable system. In this case, the system was my emotional well-being, and the vulnerabilities were the multiple access points my family had to cause disruption and pain. Financial disentanglement required more formal steps. I scheduled an appointment with an attorney to update my legal documents, removing my parents as emergency contacts and beneficiaries from all accounts and insurance policies. Instead, I named a charitable foundation for underprivileged engineering students that I had quietly supported for years. Any specific reason for these changes, the attorney asked, as we finalized the paperwork. Just updating to reflect my current circumstances and priorities, I replied, not elaborating further. I closed the joint bank account that had remained open since childhood, transferring the modest balance to my personal account. I canceled all automatic birthday and holiday gift deliveries I had scheduled for family members through various services over the years. Finally, I gathered the family heirlooms my grandfather had given me before his death, items he had specifically wanted me to have. I packaged them carefully with a neutral note explaining I was simplifying my life and thought these items should remain with the family. I shipped the box to my parents' address with tracking to ensure delivery, but required no signature that would necessitate direct interaction. With each step, I felt a weight lifting. I wasn't cutting ties out of anger or revenge, but out of self-preservation and a desire to invest my emotional energy where it would be reciprocated. As I created distance from my biological family, I simultaneously strengthened connections with my chosen family, the people who had consistently shown up for me throughout the years. Marcus invited me to join his family for a weekend at their lake house, where we fished, grilled, and shared stories around the fireplace. His parents asked thoughtful questions about my recent product launch, having read about it online and saved the article to show me. His sisters included me in their good-natured teasing as if I'd always been part of their family gatherings. At work, I deepened friendships with colleagues who shared my interests and values. Weekend hiking trips, board game nights, and collaborative side projects created a community that felt more authentic than what I had experienced with my biological family. I began dating Alicia, a wildlife biologist I met through a mutual friend. She listened intently when I spoke about my work, asked insightful questions, and shared her own passion for environmental conservation. When I told her about my family situation, she expressed empathy without judgment. "Families are complicated," she said. "Sometimes the healthiest thing is to create space until a better relationship is possible, if ever." Her understanding and support reinforced that I deserved relationships built on mutual respect and genuine interest. I also joined a tech mentorship program guiding young programmers from disadvantaged backgrounds. Working with students who showed remarkable talent despite significant obstacles gave me purpose beyond career advancement. I saw in many of them the same drive and determination that had carried me through challenging years. One student, Raphael, particularly reminded me of myself at 16, brilliant but under-supported by his family, who didn't understand his passion for technology. I spent extra time reviewing his projects and connecting him with industry contacts, providing the guidance I wished I'd had at his age. As weeks turned into months, I found peace in these new connections and redefined priorities. My apartment, once a simple place to sleep between workdays, became a true home with photos of friends, mementos from trips and spaces designed for entertaining the people who mattered to me. Professional advancement continued during this period of personal reconstruction. The algorithm I had developed gained wider industry adoption, leading to speaking invitations at technology conferences. My company promoted me to lead a larger development team, recognizing both my technical skills and ability to nurture talent in others. 6 months after implementing my boundary plan, I purchased a house in an upscale Austin neighborhood, a modern 2-story with a dedicated office space and guest rooms for visiting friends. As I arranged furniture and set up my home network, I realized I felt more settled and content than I had in years. The constant background anxiety of waiting for family validation had disappeared. I no longer checked my phone expecting disappointment or crafted careful responses designed to maintain fragile connections. I had stopped performing emotional labor for people who didn't notice or reciprocate. Most importantly, I had stopped defining my worth through the distorted lens of family approval. My achievements stood on their own merits. My relationships flourished because they were built on authentic exchange rather than obligation. My day-to-day experience felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of unmet expectations. This wasn't the outcome I would have chosen in an ideal world. In that world, my parents would have recognized their patterns, acknowledged the hurt they had caused, and worked to build a healthier relationship. My sister would have developed awareness beyond her self-centered perspective. But I had accepted that I couldn't control their choices or awareness. I could only control my own boundaries and determine where to invest my limited emotional resources. Some might view my approach as passive-aggressive or petty. I saw it differently. After years of direct conversations that went nowhere, of expressing hurt, only to have it dismissed, of extending myself, only to be taken for granted, I had simply stepped away from a dynamic that could not be fixed through my efforts. Alone. There was a certain elegant simplicity to disappearing without drama. No final confrontation, no ultimatums, no detailed explanations that would be misconstrued or dismissed. Just the quiet cessation of effort from my side, and the natural consequences that followed. 1 month after implementing my plan, the first attempts at routine contact began. A text message arrived at my old number. "Happy belated birthday. Sorry we missed it again. Call us when you get a chance, love, Mom." My birthday had been 3 months earlier. This belated acknowledgement arrived only after I had stopped initiating contact. Voicemails accumulated on my disconnected number, automatically forwarded to an email account I checked periodically. My father left messages about family dinner next weekend and touching base about the holidays. My sister sent a text asking if I could help her find job connections in the tech industry. All these attempts at contact followed the same pattern as always. They reached out when they wanted something from me with no acknowledgement of the one-sided nature of our relationship. Initially, they seemed to assume I was simply busy with work. The messages maintained their usual casual tone, giving no indication they realized anything fundamental had changed. 3 months into my silence, their approach shifted. My mother's messages to my old email address grew increasingly concerned. "Ernesto, we haven't heard from you in months. Is everything okay? Please call us. Son, we're starting to worry. No one has heard from you. Please just let us know you're all right. We tried calling your office, but they wouldn't tell us anything. Are you angry with us for some reason?" My father contacted my company, attempting to reach me through professional channels. The HR department, following standard privacy protocols, simply informed him they couldn't share personal information about employees. But I'm his father, he had apparently insisted, according to my supervisor who mentioned the call. "I need to speak with him. We suggested he try contacting you directly," my supervisor said, looking concerned. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I assured her. "Just setting some necessary boundaries with family." She nodded understanding and didn't press further. On social media, my sister began posting cryptic messages. "Some people think they're too good for family once they get successful. Disappointed family drama. Funny how someone can just disappear when you've always been there for them. Ungrateful." Her revision of our family history was interesting but unsurprising. In her narrative, she had always been there for me, a claim that had no basis in reality. As Thanksgiving approached, the attempts at contact intensified. My parents sent emails about travel plans and dinner times, as if my silence had been a minor communication glitch rather than a deliberate choice. When Thanksgiving passed without response, the tone of their messages changed dramatically. Christmas presented the first major family holiday, where my absence couldn't be explained away. My parents sent gifts to my old address which were returned as undeliverable. They called my disconnected number repeatedly on Christmas Day. In January, through mutual connections, I heard that family photos from the holiday gathering looked noticeably strained. My mother appeared worried in the images, her usual polished smile replaced by a tight-lipped expression. Even my sister seemed less exuberant than usual. A former neighbor who still lived near my parents mentioned running into my mother at the grocery store. "She asked if I'd heard from you," the neighbor wrote in a message. "She seemed really concerned. Said they haven't been able to reach you for months." This was the first indication that my parents had begun acknowledging to others that something was wrong. The family that had presented a perfect image to the community for decades was now facing questions they couldn't easily answer. 9 months into my silence, the crisis reached its peak. My father showed up at my company's office building in Austin, having flown across the country unannounced. Security called up to verify whether I wanted to receive the visitor. "I'm in meetings all day," I told them. "Please let him know I'm unavailable." Through the office windows, I watched him standing on the sidewalk for nearly an hour before finally leaving. He looked older than I, remembered his shoulders slightly stooped. For a moment I felt a twinge of guilt. Then I remembered the decades of emotional neglect that had led to this point. Later that week I learned through Marcus that my mother had hired a private investigator to confirm I was alive and well. The investigator had apparently observed me going about my normal routine, working, shopping, meeting friends for dinner, and reported back that I appeared to be thriving but choosing no contact. "Your mom called my parents trying to get your new number," Marcus told me during our weekly video call. "They told her they weren't comfortable getting involved." "I appreciate that," I said sincerely. "She seemed genuinely confused about why you've cut contact, like she honestly doesn't understand what happened." "That's part of the problem," I explained. "They've never recognized their behavior or its impact. Even now they're more concerned about the disruption to their narrative than understanding my experience." The most surprising development came when my sister left a tearful voicemail for Marcus, pleading with him to intervene. She said, and I quote, "We've always been such a close family. I don't understand why he's doing this to us." Marcus reported his expression, indicating how absurd he found this claim. "Classic rewriting of history," I noted. I told her I wasn't getting involved, but suggested your family might need to do some serious reflection on their treatment of you over the years. By this point, my parents had been forced to acknowledge to extended family and friends that something significant had happened. The perfect family image had cracked, revealing the dysfunction beneath. According to mutual acquaintances, they had begun framing the situation as me having some kind of mental health crisis or being under negative influences, anything to avoid examining their own behavior. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of my sister's actual concerning behavior being minimized or enabled, my healthy boundary setting was pathologized. It fit the established pattern perfectly. What they failed to understand was that my silence wasn't about punishing them. It was about finally prioritizing my own well-being after decades of placing their needs and feelings above mine. Their panic wasn't my goal, merely a natural consequence of suddenly losing the family member they had taken for granted. As the 1-year mark of my disengagement approached, I felt surprisingly peaceful. My life had found a new equilibrium centered around reciprocal relationships and meaningful work. The absence of family drama had created space for personal growth and genuine connections. I sometimes wondered whether my parents and sister had gained any insight from the experience. Had they reflected on the patterns that led to this outcome? Had they recognized their role in creating a family dynamic that ultimately proved unsustainable? Or were they simply waiting for things to blow over so we could return to the same dysfunctional patterns? The answers to these questions mattered less to me now. I had stopped organizing my life around their perceptions and approval. Whatever lessons they might or might not learn were their own responsibility, not mine. 1 year after implementing my boundary plan, my life had transformed in ways both subtle and profound. My career continued its upward trajectory with a promotion to Director of Engineering, overseeing multiple development teams and strategic product initiatives. My relationship with Alicia had grown serious, with discussions about our future together becoming increasingly concrete. The most significant change, however, was internal. The persistent undercurrent of not enoughness that had accompanied me since childhood had finally quieted. Through consistent therapy, supportive friendships, and distance from toxic patterns, I had developed a stable sense of self-worth, not contingent on external validation. On an ordinary Tuesday, 13 months after our last contact, a hand-addressed envelope arrived at my office. The administrative assistant who sorted mail recognized my father's name in the return address and asked if I wanted to receive it. After a moment's consideration, I accepted the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, the first my father had ever sent me. "Dear Ernesto," it began. "After a year of reflection, I'm writing not to make excuses but to acknowledge failures that I'm only now beginning to understand. Your absence forced us to confront patterns we had normalized for decades. A family therapist helped us recognize the extent of our unequal treatment and the damage it caused. I won't claim we fully understand everything yet, but we're committed to the work of becoming better parents, even to our adult children. Whatever you decide regarding future contact, please know this. You deserved better, and that failure rests solely with us, not you." The letter continued with specific acknowledgments of moments when they had dismissed my achievements or prioritized Bella unfairly. It mentioned therapy sessions they had begun attending as a family, including Bella, who was struggling to recognize her role but committed to the process. I read the letter several times, examining my emotional response carefully. There was no dramatic surge of forgiveness or desire to immediately reconnect. Instead, I felt a quiet acknowledgement that this represented something new, the first real accountability after decades of dismissal. During my next therapy session with Dr. Allen, I brought the letter. "What are your thoughts about this?" he asked after reading it. "It seems genuine," I said. "But one letter doesn't erase years of patterns or guarantee changed behavior." "Very true. Are you considering responding?" "I'm not sure yet. Part of me thinks any response might be interpreted as everything being instantly fixed. Another part recognizes that acknowledging harmful behavior is a significant first step." "Those are thoughtful considerations," Dr. Allen noted. "Remember that you control the pace and extent of any reconnection. Healthy boundaries aren't about permanent isolation, but about ensuring interactions are respectful and reciprocal." Over the following weeks, I considered my options carefully. The truth was, my life had become full and balanced without my family's presence. Any reintroduction would need to enhance, rather than disrupt, that hard-won equilibrium. I also reflected on the nature of family patterns. My parents' behavior hadn't emerged from nowhere. They likely carried forward dysfunctional dynamics from their own upbringings. Understanding this didn't excuse their actions, but provided context that helped me process the past with greater compassion. After 14 months of complete silence, I composed an email to my parents. Not a rush back to connection, but a careful opening of a door that had been firmly closed. I received Dad's letter. "Thank you for the acknowledgement of the patterns that led to my decision to create distance. This past year has been one of significant personal growth and healing for me. I've built a fulfilling life with supportive relationships and professional satisfaction. If you're genuinely interested in establishing a new type of relationship moving forward, I would need several things: continued family therapy on your part, acknowledgement of past patterns from all involved, including Bella, respect for the boundaries I establish, and an understanding that trust rebuilds slowly through consistent actions, not declarations. I'm open to beginning with occasional email communication to see if a healthier connection is possible. However, I want to be clear that I will maintain the boundaries necessary for my well-being, and any return to old patterns would result in my stepping back again. This isn't about punishment, but about ensuring that relationships in my life are reciprocal and respectful." I sent the email with no expectation of a particular response. I had learned that my peace couldn't depend on others' reactions or choices. Their reply came 2 days later, a joint email expressing surprise at hearing from me but acceptance of the terms I had outlined. They attached a letter from their family therapist with permission confirming their consistent attendance and the work they had been doing on recognizing harmful family dynamics. Most surprising was a separate email from Bella. "I didn't understand why you disappeared, but therapy has been eye-opening about how differently we were treated. I'm still processing a lot of this, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand your perspective and my part in everything. If you're willing, I'd like to work toward being actual siblings, not just people who grew up in the same house." This marked the beginning of a very slow, cautious rebuilding process. We started with occasional emails, then progressed to scheduled video calls every few weeks. I maintained firm boundaries about topics, frequency of contact, and expectations. When old patterns emerged, as they occasionally did, I calmly identified them in the moment rather than silently absorbing the hurt. 6 months into this careful reconnection, I agreed to meet my parents in a neutral location, a restaurant in a city halfway between our homes. The conversation was sometimes awkward, sometimes emotional, but fundamentally different from our interactions before the separation. They asked questions about my life and actually listened to the answers. They spoke about their therapy insights, with what appeared to be genuine reflection. The most profound change wasn't in them, however, but in me. I no longer needed their approval or validation to feel complete. I could engage with them as an adult with clear boundaries rather than a child still seeking parental recognition. I could appreciate the steps they were taking while remaining anchored in my own worth, independent of their perception. Throughout this process, I maintained and nurtured the relationships that had supported me during the period of family separation. Alicia remained my steadfast partner, offering perspective and emotional support. Marcus and his family continued to demonstrate what healthy family dynamics could look like. My mentorship of young programmers expanded, creating a legacy beyond career achievements. The life philosophy I developed through this experience centered on several key principles. Self-worth must be internally generated, not externally validated. Relationships should enhance life, not drain it. Boundaries are acts of self-respect, not punishment for others. Forgiveness is possible without forgetting or enabling harmful patterns. And perhaps most importantly, family can be chosen as well as born. As I approached my 34th birthday, Alicia and I discussed engagement, planning a future together based on mutual respect and genuine partnership. The mentorship program I had joined had grown with several students now attending prestigious universities or beginning promising careers in technology. My relationship with my parents and sister remained a work in progress, improved but still carefully bounded. We had established a new pattern of interaction based on adult relationships rather than old family dynamics. They remembered my birthday without prompting. They asked about my achievements with genuine interest. They respected the boundaries I maintained. The journey from invisible child to self-actualized adult had been longer and more complex than I could have imagined. The silent year that forced my family to confront their patterns had ultimately benefited all of us, though in drastically different ways. Looking back, I realized my grandfather had been right all along. His words echoed in my memory. "Don't let resentment consume you, but don't be a doormat either. Your life deserves to be built on reciprocal relationships." In honoring that advice, I had finally become the person he had always seen in me. Someone defined not by others' limitations, but by his own integrity, compassion, and strength. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who consistently took you for granted? What steps did you take to protect your emotional well-being? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away until others learn to value your presence.